29 Pedals JFET boost. We're finally talking about it, and I'm really excited. For context, I've had the 29 Pedals JFET boost for the better part of 6 months to 9 months at this point, pretending like it didn't exist. I might have had it for a year, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Long enough that like some of the paint on the whatever power supply is already started to fade from it being on the majority of boards that I haven't photographed and put on the internet in that time. And that's because this is one of the 2 best boost pedals anybody makes right now. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but the Benson Germanium boost and the 29 Pedals JFET boost could not be more different from one another, but they could not do a very specific kind of thing that a boost does that I just so deeply care for, which is even at total unity, it does something to your signal. Let's talk about why that is with the 29 Pedals JFET boost. This is a simple little device with a 3-position switch and a level control. That level starts at effectively unity and goes up to about 18 or so dB of gain. And that 3-position switch has an N, an F, and an X. N is going to be normal, F is going to be flat or full, and X is, I'm going with extremely good because it's my favorite mode in this thing. Normal mode, that center position, is going to offer a slight low-end roll-off, keeping your signal from getting muddy as you drive your amp harder. It almost gets perceived as a treble boost, but it's not so much a treble boost as it is just a greater sense of clarity by cutting a little bit of those lows. The amount it cuts, by the way, is incredibly well-tuned. It never sounds thin or anemic or anything. It just gives that little bit of like clarity and cut that you want when you're boosting, especially other drive pedals. Flat is going to be exactly what it sounds like, a flat response. It's going to give you back that little bit of low end you would otherwise lose, which is really nice to be able to choose between those. And that X mode, it almost feels like it gives you more of everything. I've read the manual. I don't actually know exactly what's going on with it. I think it flattens everything passing through the circuit all the way down to incredibly low and high frequencies, which is why it sounds like you're getting more back, because in all other circumstances you would be cutting some of those extremes. But here's the secret sauce here. That X mode at low to medium gain settings on the level control is one of the best more betterers for signal coils I have ever played. My first really fall in love with it moment with this thing was through a super clean pedal platform amp sim and my Jaguar, very thin, bright pickups. That X mode and a compressor really just gave that guitar a sense of body and weight without having to be gainier, that really saved those pickups for me in a lot of contexts. And as my tendencies for guitar playing have changed over the last year or so, as my use cases for a boost pedal have gone from create larger, weightier, ambient clean sounds and over towards what you saw in that intro, which is I want to play some single coils on something really aggressive and hairy, but I don't want to just crank a rat pedal. I want to use some combination of low gain drives to get a lot of character and texture and also not overrun the purpose of the amp I've chosen. And this and the 1981 Inventions LVL are a match made in heaven for that very Touche Amore inspired intro track that you just heard. This thing is great as a clean booster. It is great to blow up your amp, and it is great to provide scaffolding around other drive pedals. I'm rambling. I've had this thing for a long time, and I deeply, deeply love it, and I think you will too. This video is coming out a couple days after the release. I'm hoping they're still in stock somewhere. If they're not, I know that Jesse and 29 Pedals are always working to build more and to keep stuff in stock, so if you get a chance to try the 29 Pedals JFET Boost, I highly recommend it. It's really, really good. Let's go to our sound samples. As always, before we get into our sound samples, let's go ahead and talk through our signal chain and the context we are working in. I am playing my Bunting Melody Queen into the 29 Pedals EUNA, the 29 Pedals JFET, the 1981 Inventions LVL, the Universal Audio Astra for modulation, the Strymon LCAP for delay, the Quiet Theory Prelude, and the Mercury 7 Reverb by Maris. From there we go to the Matchless Lightning 15 for our amplifier, and then out to the Universal Audio aux box. We're using a AC style cabinet with a dynamic 421 and a dynamic 57 microphones. This is what our dry tone sounds like. So there's going to be a little bit of ground noise with this guitar because single coils. So in post, I'm going to go ahead and put an SSL channel with no EQ, no compression, nothing else on it, but just a simple noise gate so that we're not dealing with kind of like ground hum throughout this because, of course, with a boost pedal and single coils, we're just going to get some noise in my studio in particular. So the way that I think that this will be interesting to run through is not by kind of going switch position by switch position and going min to maximum on that boost. What I think will be more kind of interesting and compelling is to start with the level all the way down and kind of roll up through incremental increases in the amount of boosting the pedal is doing. And at each stop, we will go ahead and jump between the three modes. You can kind of hear what the three different functional versions of the boost do at varying levels kind of next to each other rather than like 15 minutes apart because of the nature of kind of going one at a time. So let's start with that level at 0 in the normal mode, and then we'll jump up to full and then down to that X mode just so you can hear it. We'll start in the neck position for this. You can hear right off the bat, there's like a slight increase in presence in the mix and kind of like the amount of volume. It's a very slight volume increase, but it's mostly just texture from that JFET circuit, which is really wonderful and very subtle at these low levels, but in a way that I really love. And then you hear that low end kind of come back in when you go to full. In that X mode. That X mode really is a more of everything kind of thing, especially with single coils. It does a lot to really build things out. Let's jump back to normal and take our level up a bit. Okay, we have our level at about 9 o'clock now, so basically pointing straight at the JFET logo itself. Let's go back to bypass, jump to our bridge pickup. That full mode. And then down to that X. That X is really excellent for when you are playing something a little bit higher up that needs kind of everything brought back in. So like on that intro track, we were doing the That normal, that middle position is really great for those kind of like when you need a little bit more gain, but you want clarity. But it's a little bit less effective for those like versus that X. Yeah, this is kind of from here on out is where you start hearing a lot of great gain. Let's actually bring up the gain on our amplifier a little bit. We've got it pretty, as you heard, pretty kind of squeaky for an amp that has some really great amp gain. Let's bring the volume on our amp up to closer to noon, so we're getting a little bit of breakup without the boost itself. So we're at a spot where you can kind of like dynamically get cleans. Okay, we're going to bring that amp gain back down and move up a little bit higher on our gain range. So back to that sound. We're just shy of noon now, and we're back on that middle position for normal. Again, in this context with a little bit more boost from that JFET, I do really like bringing in some really great ambiance in the form of the Mercury 7 and the L cap. Let's go ahead and bring us up past noon. So we are now just past noon. Yeah, we are officially getting into blow your amp up territory, and it's very fun. And let's max it out. Okay, before we wrap everything up with these sound samples, I do want to point out a couple of key kind of use cases that I find really, really helpful. And number one is I think that this thing is a phenomenal boost for feeding a kind of like a subsequent drive. And so for that entire intro, the only drive pedals we used for everything were the 29 pedals JFET and the 1981 Inventions LVL. And for context, here's about how much gain we are using with the LVL. And what I love about the LVL is it has a tiny bit of like mid focus to it, very, very kind of subtly, but it is mostly just kind of a little bit darker, and it plays into your amps like tonality really, really well. I think it levels things out effectively in an amplifier, especially a pretty chimey amplifier like this Matchless Lightning. And so let's hear how the JFET can really take that and not only change the character, or not, depending on how you have the JFET set, but also how it can really kind of like accentuate something like the LVL very effectively. Let's jump up and start with full. So this would be the flattest version of things, but with more gain. Yeah, for that sound, I'm a big fan of normal mode because it really does kind of scoop a tiny bit out of the LVL to add a little bit of extra clarity for the way we have our amp set right now. And there's great chime there. Okay, before we go, I want to take one more pass at that X mode with the level at completely zero, as close to unity as you can get. And the reason for that is when this thing first came in months and months ago, and I had to kind of quietly pretend like it didn't exist for an extended period of time, the first thing that really jumped out at me was how incredibly that X mode set very, very low would build out single coils for ambient music in ways where you're not driving the amp harder, where you want a clean platform to kind of stay there and stay honest, but that also will still give you some meat and some body that your single coils might otherwise lack without having to go to humbuckers. So what we're going to do is spin up a stereo plate reverb and stereo delay in the aux, bolstered by some additional reverb and delay with the L cap and the Mercury 7. We're getting really out of control with this one. And then we'll bring in that JFET to kind of show how you can create a lot more presence with your guitar without having to add a bunch of other gain staging. What's that?
Um,
What do you have?
a car.
A guitar?
Yeah.
Is that a guitar pedal? Can you hold it up so you can see it in the camera? Oh, good job. Do you like that one?
What is this?
Yeah, that'll stay. Say bye-bye.